Hey there folks, and welcome to this video. We're going to tell you how to play Ticket to Ride. Also going to give you some tips and tricks at the end of the video that should help you out just a little bit. Something to at least consider. If you do enjoy this video, want to see more of this content, or just want to support, please do like and subscribe. It helps a lot. Thanks a bunch. So let's go ahead and dive on into it. The setup of this game, obviously we're going to take the board, put it in the middle of the table. We're going to take all of these cards that have this back on them. These are going to be all of the railroad cards. Shuffle those up, and then we're going to deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those out in a line just like so. And then we're going to take the ticket cards, shuffle all of those up. You're going to deal 3 ticket cards and 4 of these railroad cards to each player. So I'll go ahead and just flip those up so that you can see those. And we actually have all of the colors represented. So you can see on the board a bunch of different colors. We've got green, orange, pink, red, white, black, and yellow. So those are the main colors that you're going to see out on the board. There's also some of these that are gray, which I'll explain in a second. And then we've got the wild. So this can act as one of any of these railroad cards here. Then we have these ticket cards, and what those are going to have on them are two different cities. And so you can see these 2 different cities. If you connect those with your railroad, you're going to get those points. So that's how you get a majority of your points. I guess that's how you get many of your points. Maybe not a majority. That's how you get a lot of your points. So the main point in the game is what you're doing, trying to complete those tickets. Each player is going to take all of their trains of their color, and then you're going to take this as well. This is your little scoring disc. Go ahead and put it on the 100. That is basically a 0 at the beginning of the game. And then you're just going to track around the outside of the entire board. So what we're going to do next, actually that's everything for setup. The only other thing to keep in mind is these cards right here are just for reference. And so whoever has the longest the longest path of your connected railroads without branching off. So if I was going from here, let's say I had a railroad coming from here all the way in and through and around, and then I had a little branch off, I wouldn't be able to count that branch. So basically, you can take your finger, and as long as you can do it in one line, then you can count that. So at the end of the game, that's worth 10 points for whoever has the longest continuous railroad. And then this right here is just telling you how many of each of the cards there are, including the wild. So that is a reference for that. And then on the back right here, it's telling you the score of each of your railroads. So when you play these, they're worth points, and that is also on the board right here as a reference for you. So if you need to see that there, that's nice and big and should be fairly obvious. During setup, you're looking at these cards right here. You can keep all 3 of them, but you have to keep at least 2. And so if I was looking at these, let's go ahead and say I just want to keep these 2 because they're closer. This one's kind of on the east coast, and these 2 are both on the west, so it might be a better strategy just to keep those 2. And you're probably going to want to keep those secret so that people don't try and cut you off. That's part of the game. And you'll probably want to keep these secret as well. So that is the setup of the game. Now let's walk through the turns that you can do. Very simple, basic turns. So you could take a couple of these cards. You can take 2. If you take a wild, you only get to take 1. Now if you don't like the cards that are out here, maybe I'm going for a white, then you could always take blind. And actually, that's a good example right there. If you get a wild, you still get to go again because you didn't know you were getting a wild. So if you take a wild out here, you only get 1 because you know what you're getting. But if you get it off the top of the deck blindly, then you are good to go. My goodness, we got 2 wilds, so that is fantastic. And so that would be your turn. It would move on to the next player. So that's your first action. And you could, if you wanted to, let's say I want a green, then you could replace it, and then you could take that card as well, or you could take blind. So you can really divvy that up however you want. The one main thing to keep in mind is if you take one of these wild cards, these locomotives, then your turn ends immediately. Another thing while we're here to keep in mind is if there's ever 3 of these locomotives out, let's say that the deck is like this, I take a pink, and then a 3rd locomotive comes out. We're going to take all of these, and we are going to put those in the discard pile, and then we're going to replace it with 5 new ones. And so that would happen immediately if there's 3, and any time that happens if there's 3 out. So that's one rule to keep in mind with the locomotives as well. So that's the first thing you can do on your turn, and something you're going to be doing an awful lot is just taking these cards, whether you're blind or from out here. Another thing you could do is you could play trains. Now this is the fun part of the game right here. We'll just flip these cards up like so. And let's say I wanted to play a train. Let's say I collected both of those on my last turn. There's no card limit, by the way. So let's say I wanted to play a train. I've got these 3 blacks right here. And so this right here, I would have to have 3 blacks to connect these 2 cities. So right here, I'd have to have 3 greens. Right here, I'd have to have 6 reds. Right here, I'd have to have 6 greens. And you can tell they're all over the board. Whatever it is in between the 2 cities, like here, I could either have 2 yellows or 2 reds. And you can have 2 different players that are taking up that route. So if I played here, someone else could still play there, except in a 2-player game. So that is how those routes work. So I would just take these 3 cards, my 3 blacks, and then I would take my 3 trains and I would put them on that route. So now I've connected Raleigh and Nashville. And so you're placing your trains trying to get these points. So this would not be really a great move, but it's just an example. And that right there is a 3. So we would go ahead, is 3 trains long. So we would get 4 points. So you're going to go ahead and just move yourself up there. So the last thing to note when you're laying a track is all of these grays out here on the board. So Nashville to Atlanta, you can see that that's gray, and there aren't any gray cards. So what you're going to have to do for those routes is you just have to have that number of the same color. So it can be any color, but you're going to have 2 of the same color. So I could have 2 blues, yellows, reds, greens, whatever, but they do have to be the same. So this route there, 2 of the same, or this route up here, that's going to need to be 6 of the same. It doesn't matter what color, but they do have to be the same color. And that's the last thing to note on the action where you are laying a route. So the last action here is drawing tickets. You're going to draw 3 more tickets, and you have to keep at least 1 of these, but you can keep as many as you want. So you can keep all 3 if you'd like, but you have to keep at least 1. So maybe we already have a partial route on one of these, and that may be worth keeping. So if I had already completed these 2 over here, give you a better angle of that. We're on the West Coast, Vancouver and Portland. This one already says Portland on it, so maybe we're able to connect Nashville and get a bunch of points. 17 points is pretty good. And then these 2, they're a little bit harder, so we're going to go ahead and just discard those. So that is the take tickets action. So those are the 3 actions you can take during the game, and you're all in all just trying to score as many points as you can, mainly with your tickets, but you're also looking at these right here. So each of these routes that you are claiming, you're going to get points for each of those as well, and you can see how many points. So the bigger the route, if it's one of these that takes 6 trains, you're going to get more points for that, but it's going to take a longer time to collect the cards for that. So that's kind of the trade-off. The last thing to mention here is the game ends. So your trains, let's say I played all of those out on the board, and I've got just these 5 left. So when someone is down to 2 or less trains, let's say I build a route that takes 3, I went ahead and built this route over here that costs me the 3. Now I only have 2 left in my supply. When that happens, it is the very last round. Everyone, including myself, including the person that goes down to 2, is going to get 1 more turn. So do be aware of that and keeping an eye on everyone else as they're getting down to the end of their trains, and maybe even use that to your advantage to try and play a route maybe you don't want to, but maybe you want to end the game a little earlier, that kind of thing. But that is how the game ends. Last thing to note that I think I didn't mention is your trains don't have to be connected. And so I could play one route over here, and then I could play another one all the way over here. It doesn't have to be connected, but there are some definite advantages and benefits if you do by completing these. Obviously these cities have to be connected, and then 2, the longest connected route is going to get you 10 bonus points at the end of the game. So you're going to look at your score at the end of the game. You should count up your tickets and add that. As you're playing the game, you should go ahead and add these already. So maybe we ended at 62, and then you're going to add up these cards as well. Cards you do not complete for tickets do count against you. So let's say we completed both of these. That's going to be 30, but we didn't get this, so 30 minus 11 is going to be 19 points. So that would count against us since we didn't complete it. And that should give you your final score. That wasn't 19, but for the sake of time, we'll just throw it out there. And then the last thing is 10 points for whoever had the most. Boom, right about there. So that is how you play Ticket to Ride, end game and everything. Hopefully that gives you a nice little bit of Ticket to Ride. This is a fairly simple game, and so there's just a few tips that I've got to throw out for you. The first one is to really consider this longest train. This is worth 10 bonus points, and if you're the one that gets it, only one person gets it. So if you get it, you're getting 10 points and no one else is. So it's almost a 20-point swing. If someone else gets it and you don't, then that's 10 points for them and not 10 points for you. So that's a pretty big deal. 10 points is pretty decent. Another thing to keep in mind is as you're playing these different railroads, these different routes, the bigger ones are worth more points. So do consider that. I often will try to go for some of these bigger routes just because they get you more points. And then at the beginning of the game, I think the most expensive card, the most points you can get is 21 points. Let's see if I can find that one. Looks like it's hidden somewhere. There we go. Los Angeles to New York. So that is Los Angeles to New York, all the way over here, very far across the map. That's worth 21 points. You can complete that throughout the game. It might be one of the only cards you complete, but you can complete that. At the beginning of the game, just to give you a feel of if you would be able to complete it or not. One thing I would definitely recommend is at the very beginning of the game when you're getting your cards, try to connect and combine as much as possible. And so these two cards right here both have Portland on it. And so if I can make my route starting in Portland and going down to Phoenix, for instance, and then I can branch off of that and make it to Nashville, I can not only connect these two cards and make it more efficient, but I can also keep my longest train going and be really efficient with that as well, not having a bunch of branches off that would take away from that. And don't be afraid to, near the end of the game, maybe just take some extra tickets as an action, because sometimes if you have your trains all over the place, you can be really close to just adding a few more routes and getting some tickets. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Hopefully that gives you a nice little bit of Ticket to Ride, how to play, how to maybe do a little bit better even. That is Ticket to Ride. Thanks a bunch.